We are basically in the middle of two Bitcoin halvings, Bitcoin forming its bottom. How long that will take, nobody knows. But what I can tell you is this: the data does not get any more simple than three steps, three parts of the Bitcoin cycles. That is Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin all-time high, Bitcoin correction. As now we sit in the middle of a Bitcoin correction, we have the roadmap, a very consistent roadmap of what is next for Bitcoin. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Crypto Capital Venture. Let's just jump into the video. Bitcoin halving, this white line right here. This was 2012. Bitcoin all-time high, Bitcoin correction. Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin all-time high, Bitcoin correction. Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin all-time high, Bitcoin correction. I don't know how much more simple it could possibly get. And there are so many different data points that we can look at. There are very helpful data points. There's on-chain metrics. There's technical analysis, indicators. There's so many different things that we can kind of integrate into this three-step Bitcoin cycle. But at the very simplest level, it doesn't get any more simple than that. Now, for context to this chart, this long-term chart, I bring up often very briefly in a lot of my Bitcoin videos. And in this video, I want to dig into it. I want to talk about, because I charted this back in 2018, I want to talk about where we are in the path of Bitcoin, the path of Bitcoin in this formation, this bottom formation, the path of Bitcoin to new all-time highs. And the context of this comes from a video I did in 2018, December 18th, 2018, where this is where I charted this chart. And I want to take a very quick clip to lay the groundwork for this video for you. I took Fibonacci retracement. I kind of took it from where it is now. I put it up to that potential speculative swing high of around 90,000. And you can see right here, we have the 786 retracement. So, that's right around $21,000. So we could also even use the So $21,000 was the speculative swing low. $90,000 was the speculative swing high. And we can see now, looking at this chart, how it actually played out. From when I did the video, the chart was empty, right? And we didn't hit the $90,000 mark. It was speculative. But one thing is true. We broke the bull market doors as anticipated. We hit a new all-time high as anticipated. And we fell into a correction as anticipated. So I want to take all of this and start breaking down that data to get an idea of, well, what is next for Bitcoin? And we don't have to change this chart at all right now. And I don't plan to. Even when we're looking at the next all-time highs for Bitcoin, going through the next halving in 2024 for Bitcoin, I don't plan to change this chart. I want to see how it plays out and how consistent this data alone is. The one indicator that is very consistent through this charting method that I did was the 786. That is this yellow line that you see here. And that is based off of previous cycles as well. So just for context, if we're looking at the swing low in November 2011 to the swing high all-time high, you can see this yellow 786 that Bitcoin revisited in its downtrend, in its correction phase, right? And that's where that's where it stems from. That swing low to the 2017 swing high. Here we have the Bitcoin 786 line that Bitcoin corrected to. And then here we are. And you saw me chart it in the speculative video from swing low to swing high at 90,000. That is why we have a yellow line 786 for Bitcoin correction. Now, here's what's happened. This is kind of where I want to do this update, is Bitcoin didn't go to 90,000, obviously. We missed the mark, right? But that's okay. We bring this down a little bit to the swing high Bitcoin saw, and we have the 786 line actually sitting around $17,000. And really, that area is slightly below the last 786 line, but the story is the same. Bitcoin broke all-time high, went up to this area, this general vicinity, and is in correction now. And we are in correction. How long this lasts, now this is what we have to kind of wait to see. Even when I did the bottoming out video in December 2018, you can just see this is a monthly chart. There was months of bottoming out range. And we're in that environment now where we could be in kind of this multi-month waiting game, right? And that could be very volatile. What is so cool to see with this is when I recorded this video, number one, we had no idea what Bitcoin price was going to do. How epic that it did go from, what was it? What was Bitcoin price when I did the video in the 3,000s? It went from that area to $60,000+. It played out. And not only that, with that story playing out the way it did, now we have S&P 500 index. We have traditional markets correcting. They're in their own multi-month correction. And what's so cool about that is the fact that the same thing was happening in that last Bitcoin correction. The confluence of all of this data coming onto this chart is so ridiculous. And it's really interesting to watch. And we can continue speculating what's going to happen next. But I don't think, as we zoom out on this Bitcoin chart, that there's much more consistent data than this, and that is all of this this higher high and higher low uptrend in the mix with these Bitcoin halvings and in the mix with these Fibonacci retracements. It's this long-term growth of Bitcoin, and the foundation of it really is halvings, the supply shock of Bitcoin, all-time highs, volatile corrections. The story continues to play out over and over again, and here we are in the middle of a correction. Here we are. There's a lot of fear in the markets, and it is so similar to 2018. And there was still going to be some bottom formation for months when I did the video, but I really think we're in a similar part of the story. So here's what we're looking at next for Bitcoin. For me, I continue to maintain this 786 theory, right? And let's chart the real-time 786. So bear market low to bull market high, the 786, $17,000. The question is, would Bitcoin really fall that low? The main purpose of this channel is to analyze the 618 of the higher low Fibonacci, and that's around $28,000 right now, to the 786, which is 17,000. This is kind of a bottoming out range that we look to on this Fibonacci, and you can see Bitcoin is already wicked into that range. So maybe Bitcoin doesn't act as volatile to the downside as it has in previous corrections, right? And maybe lending to that part of the story could be the fact that Bitcoin actually this time around traded very sideways for over a year in this bottoming out phase, because that is what this has been. If you look at the momentum oscillator all the way back here, and this wasn't even the all-time high, that's when Bitcoin started to get its correction on the momentum oscillator, similar to previous all-time highs. So maybe that sideways action will minimize the amount of downside or capitulation that Bitcoin sees this time around. But one thing is true, as Bitcoin bottomed out in previous cycles between halvings, we are kind of in the same range right now in an area where traditional markets are finding their own corrections take place. So with that said, let's assume Bitcoin just bottoms out right here. Let's assume, and it might not go this low. I want to throw that out there. This is speculative, but let's assume there's one more leg to the downside, lower 20,000s. It's the 50-month moving average. It's a consistent data point that Bitcoin has bottomed out previous cycles, COVID swing low even. So let's assume that it did do that. Now, what we would do is we take the all-time high to that swing low, and we'd start really charting the next move to the upside, the next entry into the bull market. And we'd have a new bull market doors. It's a similar Fibonacci to the last bull market doors that we tracked that got broken in November 2020. The new bull market doors would be a 618 around 51,000, a 786 around 58,000. That would be the new bull market doors. So if I get rid of that Fibonacci, just so that we can maybe see it a little more clear, this is the area where we watch markets recover. Who knows how long it would take until we get to that area to test. But it's important to note, Bitcoin in the last halving took after the halving to break that area, right? So it's very clear on the chart. Also, Bitcoin in the halving previous to that took after the halving to break that area. So this could potentially leave Bitcoin not breaking that area until 2024. So Fibonacci around, let's just call it $60,000, 786 line of that bull market doors. Bitcoin not breaking that until 2024 in August. That's a couple of years away. So will Bitcoin diverge from that in a similar sense that it really diverged from these correction phases, right? Meaning it's not as drastic. This is a long-term sideways correction. So will Bitcoin recover quicker and actually start breaking up prior to the halving, especially with all the adoption that is online, the Bitcoin metrics that are so bullish for Bitcoin right now? Will the supply shock basically happen quicker than it did in previous cycles? One thing I know is the chart, whether it's right now or whether it does wait a little longer, is very much on point for this long-term parabolic growth for Bitcoin. The one thing that I do want to note in this video is the different pattern that's taking place. So, and this is just another piece of data on these charts that shows how different this is, this correction pattern for Bitcoin. And that is this. The previous cycles, we've seen this just perfect symmetrical triangle that Bitcoin has just broken out of, right? Meeting the halvings. Well, this time around, Bitcoin's not really putting in any type of symmetrical triangle. In fact, it's more of like this, I don't know, it's kind of like a broadening wedge of sorts, right? And that is fine. Bitcoin, this could be part of the story for Bitcoin to maybe bottom out in the 20,000s and then make its way up to breaking $100,000. But either way, it's interesting to note the fact that the pattern right now setting up for Bitcoin is different. And that pattern is basically illustrating for us that the consolidation of Bitcoin is different. It's illustrating to us that the movement of Bitcoin is becoming different, right? And so I think that's extremely important to note that on these Bitcoin charts. So this is Bitcoin, everybody. Zoomed out on the chart, the data is consistent. Bitcoin, in my view, I sit here as I sit here doing this video, is 100% on track in the same manner, in the same way that it was on track in this video. And I did that video based on the data, and maybe many people didn't agree with it, but I'm doing this video based on the data, the same exact data points. Maybe many people don't agree with it, but just as it was 4 years ago, or almost 4 years ago in December 2018, we'll let time tell how this plays out. But it will be extremely interesting as Bitcoin does find its bottom along with traditional markets, where that bottom will be and when Bitcoin will break into the next bull market doors. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I appreciate you. Be careful out there, everybody. This is data I'm tracking. I'm just like you. I have no idea what's going to happen next. So don't take this as a prediction. Take it as data. We can make the best possible decisions based on this data and find our own risk analysis. This is not financial advice. And I appreciate you coming by, everybody. Hit the subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and that like button on the way out. It means a lot to me. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.